true to what you said on paper.
The magic fingers over there. Welcome back to At the Round Table with MAMLEO. I'm your host, Larry Elson, in studio with my brother from another. The doctor is in the house to give you a checkup from the neck up. Good morning, Dr. Bradley. How are you, sir?
Good morning, sir. Good morning.
Good,
I'm
good.
here.
Now,
highly favored.
Yeah, see, we had a civics lesson at our 7 o'clock hour.
Mm-hmm.
We get no calls. Now we're going to get into scandals and rocking City Hall, and the phone's
going to go
bring off the hook. It'll be more like the Jerry Springer show.
Yeah, we're going to say it was because of the early hours.
Oh, okay. All right. The wee hours of the morning.
Wee hours of the morning.
The time change.
Yeah.
All right. We want to thank our sponsor, Guarantee Rate Mortgage Company. For all your mortgage needs, give branch manager Cora Holbrook a call at area code 781-342-0252. Guarantee Mortgage is located at 75 State Street in downtown Boston, Mass. Guarantee Rate Mortgage Company, guaranteed to exceed your expectations. Also, a reminder, Women's Only Conference, Theme Building Your House at New Bethel Baptist Church from October 27th through the 29th at 11 Beach Street in Framingham, Mass. For more information, contact First Lady Vernice Jones at 617-275-9501. Also a reminder, save the date, next week, October 28th, 2023, Pathways to Reentry Conference from 9 to 2 p.m. at Northeastern's University Student Center Hall at 360 Huntington Ave, Boston, Mass. 02115. Again, well, scandal once again has rocked City Hall. It's in the Boston Globe says allegations of an inappropriate toxic work environment directed at Boston City Hall Cabinet Chief Breonna Miller. And it's Freeze's fault. The city of Boston paid $40,000 in severance to a former employee who had accused a City Hall Cabinet Chief, Mayor Michelle Wu, of fostering a toxic work environment and threatened to sue for discrimination and retaliation, according to city records. Breonna Miller, who oversees the neighborhood services as Chief of Community Engagement, was accused by her former Chief of Staff, Joanna Suarez, of responding with hostility to her request to take time off to accommodate her disabilities and retaliating against her when she complained, according to a letter Suarez's attorney sent to the city last December seeking to settle her claims. Numerous allegations were contained in the letter, including a claim that Miller posted a sexually explicit message in a thread with city workers on an encrypted messaging service. The letter also alleges Miller and other employees used the system Signal to evade public record-keeping requirements discussing sensitive city business. In a statement last week, spokesman for Wu, Ricardo Patron, said the administration holds ourselves to the highest standards of professionalism and support in the workplace. The spokesperson did not respond to specific allegations, but said the city had conducted a thorough review of the claims and defends its handling of Suarez's case. In a large organization with a workforce of more than 19,000 employees, occasionally there are work relationships that are not successful and result in an end of employment relationship. Bertrand said in a statement responding to a series of questions from the Globe. Suarez, who declined to comment for this article, resigned in December 23rd and accepted a $40,000 severance agreement the following month. The agreement included a non-disparagement clause stating that the city would instruct Miller not to make disparaging remarks about Suarez. They need to have okay. That says it all right there. It did not include a confidentiality stipulation. Suarez is among 15 employees who have received severance agreements since last December, with agreements totaling more than $412,000 of taxpayer money, according to city figures produced recently in a response to a Globe Records request. 9 of those workers who received severance worked under the Boston Centers for Youth and Families. Their jobs were eliminated when the city dissolved its violence prevention program known as Street Outreach Advocacy and Response, or SOAR. Quincy Roberts Sr., former executive of the Mayor's Office of LGBTQ Advancement, whose tenure as a municipal employee predated the Wu administration, received more than $46,000 in severance this past July, according to city figures. Roberts, who did not work under Miller, did not comment for this story. In its statements, Wu's office said Roberts and Suarez severances in each of these payment situations. The city conducted a thorough investigation to assess the issues raised and determine whether violations of policy of law occurred. We are confident, based on the results of those investigations, that the city took the appropriate actions toward mutual separation, ending the employment relationships. The letter from Suarez's lawyer, Zachary Hammond, detailed complaints against Miller. It alleged that Miller had become enraged after Suarez conducted an anonymous survey of employees last year that drew critical responses about Miller's leadership. I've heard that in the public as well. The survey responses, according to the letter, included allegations that Miller conducted in a dismissive and unprofessional manner, contacted staff about city business at all hours of the night, greeted questions and feedback with hostility, viewed staff hiring during the prior mayoral administration with distrust, and ordered staff not to take paid time off during the holiday season at the end of the year. Hammond wrote, "It was clear that subordinates feared Miller. Among other tasks, Miller oversees an office of neighborhood liaisons who interact with constituents across the city. She also oversees the 311 system, which residents use for a litany of non-emergency response requests. Last year, Miller's salary topped $150,000. In response to a request for a comment, an attorney for Miller's referred to the city statement. In its statements, Wu's administration said complaints related to employment are expeditiously reviewed, investigated, and acted upon where appropriate. Under a cabinet established by Wu to build more supportive working environment, severance agreements are often reached to avoid possible litigation or resolve a dispute in which an employee has threatened legal action against an employer, according to Alyssa Philman, a partner at Rodman Employment Law in Newton. Typically, it's to buy off legal claims or threats of legal claims," Philman said. In a letter seeking a settlement with the city, Suarez's lawyer wrote that she suffered a panic attack after witnessing an assault at City Hall last year. While Miller allowed her to take a wellness day, she failed to respect it. According to the attorney, texting Suarez that night about a job description. After another panic attack, Suarez alleged that a similar episode unfolded. Miller told her to go home but continued giving her tasks a few days later. Suarez had a seizure, according to the letter from Suarez's attorney. On the night of September 14th, she suffered another seizure during which she bit her tongue. She told Miller she spent the night vomiting and requested another sick day to work remotely. Miller greeted this request with hostility, the letter alleges. In the letter, Suarez's attorneys also alleged that Miller's other cabinet chiefs and city employees, including some who worked in the mayor's office, communicated about sensitive city business via Signal, the encrypted message application that they selected because it automatically deleted the automatic deletion feature helped them evade statutory record keeping requirements. A spokesman from the Wu's administration declined to comment on the allegation that employees use the system to bypass the records law. So, folks, this is the cabinet position. You know, this is the woman that I always saw with Mayor Wu when she was campaigning. So I knew she was going to have a very prominent position in her administration because she was the black face that was always with her in our community. And it's troubling, and this has been quite a ride in where people were saying a lot of the mayor's staff are very young, and with youth, there's a lot of inexperience. And this is not one. And I've heard many folks who talk about Miller, who was the community outreach person for the mayor's office, in her way of dealing with people, and that it has become very confrontational with her as well as the public, who she's supposed to be, who's paying her $150,000 plus salary, right? And that public records. I still work for the city for a few more months. Anything I do with my work phone or at work related to computers and all that, that is a public record. You don't get to put them in these encrypted messages. And usually when you're doing that, it's usually because you're trying to hide something. 617-282-0685, 617-282-0685. Listen at the roundtable, MAMLEO.
Well, you know, unfortunately, I'm not speaking from a position of knowledge on this issue because I don't really know it. But I'm just speaking from a position of experience as a former commander in BPD. The commander, the mayor, should have stepped in on this and knock this out of the box real quickly, because it reflects on her leadership.
Absolutely.
It really does. It reflects on her.
But also, Dr. Bradley, and our listening audience, this is someone, if this is the type of taint and stain on someone who is charged with overseeing community outreach.
That's where I'm going.
And you can't even reach your folks inside you, or saying you're creating a hostile work environment.
That's where I'm going. So,
and the taxpayers are paying out large sums, and people are leaving it's not an invitation for anyone. If I'm reading this, do you think I want to work under this person?
Not only that, I don't want to work under her. I don't want to work beside her. I don't want to be involved, in a cabinet that actually listen to her suggestions. But ultimately, the citizens of the city lose out here,
and they pay the bill.
And they're paying, but they're losing on both ways. They're losing financially, and they're losing in terms of services. Because how is that individual going to guide that component of the ship?
Right.
How she's going to actually steer those issues and bring those issues back to the mayor when she's dealing with these intrinsic and internal issues.
Right.
So I think it's important. As a leader, I would have stopped in and said, we have to nick this in the butt real quickly.
Right, and this is on the heels of the most recently when there was an individual on the mayor's team who was actually living in City Hall. There was this whole scandal about drug use a few months ago about a former employee now who was living in the building in City Hall, literally living there, and they didn't even know. And all this was going on. So it seems that there are very few adults, and I'm looking at your expression on your face, that are in this administration. Those folks who have been pushed, because it's like almost, if you're over 40 in this administration, that you put out the pasture.
Wow.
Right? Because I don't know many of the people who are in administration that are in real leadership that are above that age range. And you put a lot of young people in there. Some people have referred to the mayor's administration as romper room.
That's what it sounds like. I mean, that's when as you were reading, I said, get romper room out of the house. That's what I said to myself when I was like, what's going on in the people's house?
Right.
Where's, this is romper room here.
Right.
So the thing is, how does she correct the ship, in your opinion? What do you think she can do?
Well, this is the thing, is that you have to really take a hard look in understanding that, you do need some veterans in there who have some, not just veterans in age, but veterans in wisdom and knowing how to deal with people and be able to lead, right? Not just rewarding people because they helped on your campaign, right? And this is, like I said, I have heard, many a times of the behavior of Ms. Miller when it comes to people in the public who have gone there, who are asking for services, and they're not receiving them. And you are a city employee just like I am. I get sent to a call. I don't get to decide whether or not I want to deal with your problem. That is what I get paid. And clearly she's getting paid quite handsomely. Over $150,000 is not chump change.
No, it's not.
She's making more than a police officer coming out of the academy, right? And yet the people that work for you, you're sending things out and signal and encrypted messages, right? So what else is being covered up there? What else is not getting out to the public? And these are public records that's supposed you're keeping a document. So that in itself, in my opinion, be enough to say we need another severance package with Ms. Miller in the city, because the taxpayers are not getting what they're paying for.
So what is the function of this individual? What does she do?
I don't know if they've had this position in the past. It's created. It's paramount to being a community service person, coordinator for the city at the city level, and coordinating, constituent services, right?
So which is a key position?
That's what I'm talking about.
That's
right?
where.
But if you're not approachable, right? Yeah. And your staff is leaving, right? There's no stability. How are this community constituent services being delivered?
So the very people that are voting to keep you in office are not being serviced. That's what you're saying to me. That
is correct. From what this story is saying, but I've heard this from other people who have encountered Miss Miller and saying that how it's been hostile and that she has not been professional, and I have seen her at places where she's not engaged. Like, okay, I got to go to this meeting, and 10 minutes after it starts, she's trying to creep out the door, and I'm watching. And I watch because I'm like, wait a minute, you didn't pay to be here, right? That is your job, And granted, salary, you may not want to be there at the meeting 7, 8 o'clock at night, but that is your job. Yeah. That's what you signed up for.
You sign on for that.
And so, again, you need some maturity in the room as well, and not just because I said every time I saw the mayor, particularly in the black community during when she was running, this one I didn't know who she was but I wasn't.
So she was the black face in the house.
Yes, and so this was her reward for being a loyal soldier.
So what is the community going to do about it? What is the black community saying about it? Are you hearing anything from the community about not being served?
We need that cricket sound again, right? Because you see the phones are, even now the phones are not ringing because people don't hold folks accountable.
Yeah.
And they wonder why they don't get the services. Because if the person that is in charge of the services is spending their time and their employees are spending time in litigation, they're not delivering services for you.
That's pretty much what's happening. The cricket sound was not only coming out off the phones, coming out of the city hall as well.
Well, and I think the response from the Wu administration was very weak. I mean, this is not some minor thing that, okay, if you're claiming that you pay off these cases, these litigation, you don't keep paying money out if there's nothing. A lot of times you pay that off because you don't want what's really happening to come out.
Yeah. I would say that you don't want to get into, you pay more money to go into litigation over it in the court.
Well, right, but if you...
what I'm saying is that you serve both ways.
Yes.
You prevent it from coming out, and you also obviate the issue around court.
But if you keep the problem that persists, right, and these keep coming, isn't that the definition of insanity? So if this person is still in that position and it keeps costing you, then it's not just them who is complicit in this. You have to say, yeah, I get it. Because if you're my friend or we have a relationship, it should be mutual where I respect it. I'm not going to be having stories about me in the Globe, right? That now I have to make a decision on our relationship is going to be strained because I may have to remove you, right?
Yeah.
Once, but this is things like multiple.
Yeah, I mean, there are certain people that are close to me. If they put me in a position to help them, before I make a decision that would be controversial, I would think about my relationship with that person. I would not actually, do something to put their position in jeopardy or put add extra stress to their position. I got it. But on the other side of it is, as a leader, sometimes you have to make those difficult decisions.
That's right. But I don't see it being difficult when the evidence supports that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I hear you. But being
I know what you're saying. But that relationship-wide difficulty, right?
Being a former commander, there was times in my administration at the BPD that I had to remove people that were friends of mine.
Yeah.
And I had to make that tough decision. One ultimately ended up being my wife. But I had to remove that individual from a position, from a comfortable position. It can be very stressful.
Right, but that wasn't because of anything inappropriate.
No, it wasn't.
It was because I
had a job to get done.
Exactly, and then didn't want disappearance, right? So you did the right thing, but. In a lot of times, you're usually making decisions based on people who you didn't put there, right? That you inherited or were sent to you with no consultation from you. Yeah. And now you know that they're a problem when you get there, right? That's why they're sent there, because no one wanted to be their problem. It gets passed on to you. But like I said, this is your community service person. This is the 311. 311 is what people call in when they have complaints to the city. So if this office is tasked with that and it's all this turmoil in there, what's happening to those complaints? Who's answering those complaints?
They're probably not being answered. You have any comments?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, Patrick Wilson, not I, but Patrick Wilson, who's tuned in, says if Mayor Wu's going to work for Harvard, doesn't she and everything she's done kind of become a speed bump?
Great question. I'll let you take it first stab at that, Doctor.
I didn't really hear the whole question, the whole thing. Can you say that again?
If Mayor Wu is going to work for Harvard,
yeah,
doesn't she and everything she's done kind of become a speed bump?
And the answer to that question is absolutely. I do agree with that, because it really doesn't have any meaning. It just slows everything down. You know what I mean? So. And that could be the reason why she's slow in terms of responding, or she's responding in such a weak way, because she has other plans. That was going to be my next question. Is
what's checked out?
Yeah. What is her future plans? Is she running for office again? Because it seems to me if she had aspirations of becoming the mayor again, then she would actually be much more forceful in dealing with this in this situation, because she has to show strong leadership. That's why I kept saying leadership. Her leadership position is to actually make a decision that's best for her and her administration. Just giving a slap in the hand and paying $48,000 or $40,000 is not that.
But
that
it's
form of leadership.
bigger than that. You know, it's this. They said in this scenario here, there's been over $400,000 of taxpayer money. That is significant. I know during my tenure as president of MAMLEO, right, they've paid out millions of dollars to folks because of wrongdoing, just in the police department. And like you said, you have 19,000 employees. Yes, you're going to have these problems, but then what do you do with it when the problem is still there? That says you're not dealing with the problem. You're just using taxpayers' funding to try to make it go away.
But that is no sweat off your nose, though. It's not your money. You see what I'm saying? Because I mean, a good leader will actually do what he or she has to do, and then eradicate the problem so it doesn't happen again.
Right. But does this speak to the bigger issue with this administration as well? Is a lot of the things that they claim they were going to address, mass and CAS, the housing situation, education, that a lot of those things have not improved. And is it because we have the wrong people in leadership in this administration?
I would suggest so, because I mean, in my opinion, that's why I asked the reason. What is her task? That's the question. Because for me, strategies of dealing with that issue would be coming from someone like that at the table to say, this is a recommendation that I have to deal with this issue. Let's bounce it around this room before we start moving it out. That's how policy should be made, where you come into the table as a part of the command staff or the cabinet, and you're giving the leader recommendations to say, okay, this is how Chicago does it. This is how Atlanta does it, and maybe we can actually come up with a way to actually incorporate the two. You have these kind of plans that are hitting the table that are being discussed in that room.
But it would be interesting now to find out what was her background prior to being elevated to a cabinet position, other than being her aide during the campaign, right?
Usually in politics, it's not much of a background
Right.
that
And
leads
this is
into
what
the
you get.
position
Right.
that you're currently occupying.
Right.
Very few people are
Right.
in the position or have the experience to be in the position. It's all about connections and not necessarily experience.
Well, this also sounds like someone who, a lot of times when they're insecure about themselves and then they get in position of power, right, they want to exact that on other people. Like, do you know who I am? And the title has them lose their mind, right? And now they're out there, well, I'm part of the mayor's cabinet and I have this position of importance, right? And you're just a subordinate, and usually those are the ones that end in trouble. Like I said, if it's true that you're sending out inappropriate sexual videos of yourself to employees, that there are policies for that type of harassment. And most people, if you know, Dr. Bradley, you were part of the leadership in the Boston Police Department, the deputy superintendent, you conducted yourself properly, right? If you know, because you had to address a captain there because he was making females feel uncomfortable with his presence, and they were intimidated because of his position.
That's right, yes.
This is why when people at that level are caught doing something or allegations of them doing something, you have to be more forceful with your messaging, because there are people who are under them who are looking at their livelihood and will be afraid and intimidated from making any complaints to them, because exactly what happens, they end up getting separated from their positions, and that person ends up keeping their job.
Well, see, a true leader will select people to be around him or her who have shown the characteristics of true leadership. That's how you do it.
How it's supposed to work.
Yeah, that's how, exactly. You don't put people in place around you as a leader that cannot lead, because you can't possibly lead on everything that would be coming in your sphere of responsibility. You can't do it. You have to have good, reliable, dependable individuals who have shown, character, has good character, and have shown that good leadership practices. So you can put them in certain areas, and then they can actually lead that particular aspect of your job, for you, and then work to inform you about what's going on. That's leadership, And so oftentimes your friends may not be the type of person, the best selection for that job. And that's why I say that she needs to make a decision. You know, am I going to keep you in this position? Although you may be my friend, I can't keep you in this position because you're just, unless, like this caller said, you know, she has other aspirations. She's going in other directions.
This woman in this article seems like she had been being tormented by this Miller, the mayor's cabinet person, a person in part of the community, and to be using an encrypted messaging service on city time, sending it out. I mean, that in itself says to me that you're someone who knows the rules and you're trying to flaunt them, right?
Yeah. It's definitely evidence of guilt because you know, I mean, if you were not intentionally, you would actually use any. You would use the department email, right? Yeah, but so you're calculated. You know what I mean? You had your purpose and you definitely went for it. But my thing is, what is she going to do about it?
Well, clearly, it looks like they're doing nothing about it except paying people to leave.
Not good,
right? And bringing people in. And,
not good.
And how long does it take before that person? Because it's saying here, the Georgia Reporter is reporting that the mayor says Wu just declared that she's running for re-election. I mean, you can, that doesn't mean anything. You declare you're running for election, you can always change your mind. And I think that may be a deflection from the whole Harvard piece and, you know, getting people off your back from continuing to ask that question. If I say I'm declaring that I'm running, even though I may not be, that doesn't resolve it. But it still doesn't deal with this issue.
Well, it sounds like to me that she has some very difficult decisions to make.
But usually by this time, Dr. Bradley, you will pivot and you see, you know, I know most administrations is those growing pains, right? You're coming in and then you realize the magnitude of what you've inherited, right? You go from being a city councilor even at large. It's not the same. You know, you represent people all over across the city, but not the same as the powers and the responsibilities of the mayor. Correct. Most city councilors can go home at 5 or before 5, right? You have a smaller staff, small obligation. You become the mayor. You inherit all of that, right? And you have so many issues that really need your time and attention. Do I want to have people who are bringing this type of attention to administration?
You don't. I'm going to tell you, this has just been in leadership. You don't have the bandwidth, you know, to deal with those kind of issues in a day. Right. You know what I mean? It's like, it's your unit, it's your area, you handle it. Don't have me get involved into that. I don't have the bandwidth for. I got too many other things I have to deal with.
And you always say, where there's smoke, there's fire, because reading this article, this doesn't seem like an isolated incident. And I can tell you, for my interactions with Ms. Miller, they have not been positive. You know, and this is not an attack on her, but they have not been positive. You could clearly tell there is a disconnect. There is a standoff in that. I am very important because I work for the mayor. I work for the city. I work for the taxpayers.
But that comes with youth, though. You know what I mean? When you have someone who's young, who has ascended up the ranks, now I have arrived. You know what I mean? And I got to show everybody that I'm here. Everybody know who you are. You know what I mean? But that comes with being immature in the position of authority.
Yeah. And I think you could probably get away with that a little more. Not that you should act in that way, if your title was not community outreach, right? If you weren't tasked with engaging the community, if you weren't tasked with overseeing the 311 operations, which is people calling in to complain. So yes, you're not going to get people calling in saying, oh, this is great. I don't think, I've talked to many people who have worked in the community service office of the Boston Police Department, and I tell you, that is one of the most demanding positions in the department.
But let me ask you this question. Now, this issue has been documented and promulgated and published and all that other stuff, and the community members are reading this. What's the likelihood that they're going to take her seriously?
Well, most of them are not reading, and that's what works in their favor, right? It's where we get our news, because unless you pay for a online subscription, you don't get to read this. You get to see the caption to kind of hope that it will tease you enough to subscribe. But if you don't, you don't.
It's a business.
You get just an overview at the top of the headline, right? Because that's what it is. You know, you get the headline. But
then you come to this show and you hear about it.
You hear
all right, and now you heard about it, and now this individual is reaching out to you for community outreach. What's the likelihood that you're going to take her seriously?
Well, Well, not just her, but I got to be honest with you, Dr. Bradley, and I'm not going to call out any names. I have seen people in this administration, and I'm like, this is why things are not working. This is why, folks, I know, when you know these individuals, I don't know, a lot of them I do know, and I know that prior to getting these positions, that they were doing very little, if nothing, and now this is just some way of, increasing their salary. I mean, $150,000, and clearly looks like you're not doing the work. That's a lot. That's a lot to be paying someone to keep costing you money, because now you have to keep replacing them, and then you have to pay these folks. Like, this person is getting paid for not working.
Yeah, but the other side of it is that if she's dealing with this kind of relationship with her staff, then what's the other staff doing? Who overseeing the rest of her staff? I don't know what her staff is. I don't know if it's one or two people.
Well, if you have she has a chief of staff, that means she
has a staff.
Right. Right. That means you managing other people, and I get it, because I mean, when you're talking about, I would see this as an important part of my administration, because this is the outreach. This is what makes and breaks you. Like with former Mayor Menino, God rest his soul, that your community constituent services, that's what he prided himself on. Fighting with MAMLEO and other people, hey, that was just part of, that wasn't important. But when people were calling about services, they got, I always said, what's one thing I couldn't dispute Mayor Menino on, is that they were very good in making sure that the constituency was happy. I hear just the opposite with this administration when it comes to constituent services, that they're not being delivered. And now we're reading this.
Well, you see why.
There you go.
I mean, it's obvious.
Yeah.
But I think that's going to come back to bite her in the derriere.
Yeah, exactly.
Because when it comes down to election, that's oftentimes what people will actually look to. I can always depend on services being delivered for this guy, or this person. And that's the person who actually delivering the services. Right. All right. And it's going to come back to her.
And you ran on that. And speaking of constituent services, let's hear from one of ours. Good morning, caller. Welcome to the roundtable.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, you might not like what I'm going to say, but I have to say anyway. It might be controversial, but I'm going to say it. This is what happens when you don't have someone who's not originally from Boston coming here and getting elected and doing her own show-like thing, like it. This created this mess. I had to call it what it is, this mess in City Hall, and especially when her administration,
Well, I'm going to push back, and it's not that I don't like what you said. I'm just going to disagree a little bit, and here's what I'm saying, because I don't think that you can just categorize someone that comes from someplace that was not born in the city of Boston and grew up here, but she's been here long enough to understand how it works, right, and how it operates. So it's really how you apply yourself and surrounding yourself with the right people, right? Because if I don't know something and I decided, hey, I'm going to go to another state, I'm going to be the same person. If I decide to get into politics, if I don't know enough about what's going on there, I'm going to hopefully surround myself with people who do. And this is really the lack of picking the right people, it seems, and then not dealing with the problem when it arises because you are too close to that individual that you don't want to harm them, but you're causing harm to yourself. So I think I don't, where she grew up and whatnot is not an issue with me, more so than, the job. I mean, the things that she ran on are still, if we're honest with ourselves and assessment, one of her big staples was fixing mass and cash, fixing the schools, the high cost of living in the city of Boston, and those things have not changed. Matter of fact, honestly, they've gotten worse.
I have to disagree with you on what you said about having the white people around her. When the so-called white people is a bunch of yes people, that becomes a problem, because now the person who's in charge is always going to feel like they're always special, and they're always going to think they're doing everything the right way. So until someone has the courage to stand up to say no, it doesn't matter if it's all the time or none of the time, or all the time, then it's not going to change.
Right, but we're not disagreeing, because you're saying the same thing. We're just saying it in a different way. Right? Is that we're not disagreeing here. You're absolutely right, and that's exactly what I'm saying, is that this comes down to like there are friends of mine who I love dearly, family members who I love dearly. But if they came to me about a job or whatever, and they don't fit the criteria, and I know they can't carry it out, I'm not going to hire them. I know that everywhere I saw the mayor, particularly in the black community, Miss Miller was with her. So I knew that she was going to have a prominent role in the mayor's administration. I didn't know what her qualifications for the role was because I didn't research that. But because of the optics of the politics, I knew she was going to be in that role because I saw her with the mayor. Everyone who saw that knew it, and she was probably promised that. Well, clearly it looks like now that she may not be the right person for that position. And really, leadership is now, how do you pivot from that? And I'm not seeing any pivoting from the current situation, because according to this article, this is not an isolated incident. This is multiple issues with this person, and where there's smoke, there's fire. And the fact that you're using a messaging system that you know is inappropriate, that itself should be troubling to her administration. That someone is not following the rules, because everything that you do, just imagine, that's why I like police officers that wear body cameras. They don't have access to go in there and change anything. They audit the cameras, so to make sure that you're turning them on, that you're held accountable. And so if there is a system in place for city employees to make sure, because they are funded and paid by the taxpayer, that if they're not abiding by the rules, because this is all history, this is all documented, there should be accountability. And it starts with the mayor. So you can't give your friend a pass, because now what happens, like I said, when the officer doesn't have his camera on, and you say, well, wait a minute, why do we have a different standard for capturing public information with folks at City Hall than we do for first responders?
Gotta be careful.
Transparency.
Yeah, it will come back and bite you in the derriere.
Yeah, but again, so Dick, here's a question too: is that the Globe is talking about it, but where is it? And I hear people in the community talking to me on a regular basis about her administration and the lack of maturity. And people, like I said, referred to as Dr. Bradley. I've heard people referred to as romper room, and that we're not seeing real movement there. Even when things happen, sometimes when I hear the mayor, shooting and stuff, that these things, we know they shouldn't happen, but what are we doing to change them? And even reading this article, I don't see anything in here in the comments that's strong enough that says to me that this problem is really being addressed. This person still has their job, and it doesn't sound like they're equipped to do it. And who wants to work for someone, if these allegations are half true? What person, other than needing a job, would want to work in that environment?
But even with that, you're also empowering her to do even more. Because if you haven't dealt with the situation,
great point.
You're saying to her, "Well, I got your back."
Right.
So if you want to do this to another person, you're giving her empowerment.
And if you get in trouble, we'll just have the taxpayers keep bailing you out.
Keep bailing you out.
Keep writing checks.
As a leader, you have to make that decision. This has to stop now because I have other important things to do. Again, I don't have the bandwidth to deal with these issues.
No.
Well,
so Dick, again, we can always push this back to, we take responsibility here, but what are you calling down the mayor's office?
I called many times and I got very little, if not any, response back.
If you call 311, you're gonna get Ms. Miller's office. So that doesn't seem like it's gonna be of much help to you.
And one of the things I noticed about the mayor, and again, I'm not Sherlock Holmes or not a detective, so I'm not going to play one on the radio. But there's always a pattern of her wanting to be liked and popular. Last time I checked, a politician's job isn't supposed to be liked or popular. A politician's job is to give the voters, the people who voted that person into office, the tangible and resources that the community needs to better themselves. So,
well, I think Dr. Bradley said as well, leadership, it's very difficult. I know, even I'm not run a city, but I've been the head of an organization, same organization as Dr. Bradley at one point as president of MAMLEO. And there's been issues I've had to struggle with, but I always will err on the side of making the right decision. What is in the best interest of the masses? So I can't just be bogged down with testing my finger in the wind on, well, how is this politically going to benefit me? And honestly, I don't see how this benefits her, other than the fact that what this says to me again is that they bank on the fact that the public is not engaged enough in holding our elected officials accountable in a meaningful way. So this will continue, and like I said, over $400,000 paid out, of taxpayer money. This could be directed into resources. There is no return on this investment. It's not even an investment, this payout. There's no return on this. This is just more. So here at the end of the month, I'm sending the city of Boston real estate taxes on properties I own here in the city of Boston, and I see this. I'm like,
yeah, but Larry, if you can pay $1.4 billion for a school system that's dysfunctional, this is a $48,000 means nothing.
Well, because it's
let's think about that.
It's not your money. It's
not
the
your
taxpayers'
money. Exactly.
money, right? But if people had to be held personally accountable, because it says in here that Ms. Miller has a lawyer, I'd be curious to find out who is paying the bill for her attorney. Because is she acting as a city employee? So is she being represented by the city for her behavior?
Probably.
Most likely, right?
Yeah.
Let's grab this other call. Stand by, Digger. Good morning, caller. Welcome to the roundtable.
Good morning, everyone. This is T. Michael Thomas. How's everyone doing?
Good. How are you, sir?
Hey, T, how you doing, bro?
I'm in the fight. I'm in the fight. Can you please, one more time, exactly what she did?
So the allegations is that she's created a hostile work environment in there, and as the head of her department, and that she has sent out encrypted messaging on the city property, city devices, and that part of that was some sexual video content in that as well. So these violate so many rules, and that the city has paid out several tens of thousands of dollars for this to employees, and these folks are saying that this is not an isolated incident, and this is someone who's tasked with community engagement. She is a cabinet member of the mayor. She is tasked with overseeing the 311, is where all the complaints come in, and I'm sure it's overwhelming all your day long.
Okay, can I respond to that,
Sure,
Larry?
good.
Not surprising, because I'm one of those victims.
Okay, explain. Go ahead. So you had
All
an
right.
interaction with
Not
Miller,
surprising.
or the
Brianna Miller.
Okay.
Not surprising.
Okay,
Not
so
surprising.
can you mind elaborating on that experience?
Based on its things in motion, so I can't really comment on it
Okay.
on the air. But it's actually true. It's actually true. There are things that my situation is not to the surface yet, but it will be in process real soon.
So is it fair from what we're interpreting, and I want to put words in your mouth, that you're saying you're not surprised that this type of behavior, you're not surprised that city residents are not getting what they're paying her $150,000 a year plus job, that the environment is not conducive with community service?
Correct. They have this way to retaliate in different ways. Even when the mayor were a counselor at large, she had an employee that was with her for a while, and going there to get signatures of support to build up the school on Quincy and Warren, and we took in these applications of endorsements. At the time, Mayor Walsh told us to do this, to go around to all the councilors and at large to get some support. We went to her office. She was the council president at the time. The individual said, I'm going to tell her not to support this program.
So Dr.
Really?
Right, Dr. Bradley.
And she never did.
Right.
Hear me out. I'm sorry.
Good,
I'll
no,
make
good.
it. She never did, because I could show you the RFP, the request for proposal, at that particular time.
Right. So
And that I told her what happened, and she looked at me like, "What are you talking about?" I said, "Your employee." I pointed the person out. Told me in front of one of my students that they will tell you not to give us a support letter, and we never got it.
So Dr. Bradley, I'm hearing from T. Michael is saying, because he can't go into all the details because it seems like it's an active allegation,
Yeah.
right? But this seems like another piece of the puzzle, just more confirmation of this is not a functional department, and this is the department head that this allegation is. Man, this is not the first time scandal at City Hall, Rock City Hall, but there's been quite a bit. And like I said, they had an individual who was living in City Hall, and there was some inappropriate behavior going on down there. That's the article that came out. So, and I'm hearing there's more to come. So, what's your so I always say, where there's smoke, there's fire.
What do you mean by living in City Hall?
Yeah,
I had the same reaction, by the way.
Right.
They were squatting at squatters.
This was an employee of the city who was actually living in there, homeless, allegedly had drug problems and some other issues, and that they were an employee of the city.
Wow, you can't make this up.
Right. That basically had their encampment. They were living inside City Hall in their office.
So mass incast is inside City Hall now.
Yes.
The problem has permeated inside City Hall.
Right. If you can't even get it out of your own building, how are you going to get it out of the city? So, T. Michael, where are you at with yours? I know you can't go into the details, but where are you at with your situation with Miss Miller in that department as far as getting any results?
It based on I was recently contacted and asked, did I ever have any experiences or interactions? And I said, yes. So I have to meet with and give my experience on what happened.
Yeah, too bad you're not an employee. You get a check. So, Dicka, you're hearing another individual. Again, this really comes down to what the community, what the taxpayers will tolerate, right? Because most people will not even see this article. Most people see the problems that persist in this. And it's a young administration. And in every indication, it's a young administration in numbers and experience. And this is what happens sometimes when you allow people who have never been. That's why I'd be curious to see what her background is in this type of work, that she was thrust into a position because she
can I comment on that, Larry?
Yes, go ahead.
She has worked with Michelle Wu when she was a counselor at large. So she was someone like an aide and working with her administration. So she got automatically grandfathered in to that position. So it doesn't mean that she had the experience, because there was another sister that was more experienced, but her brother ran for a counselor, so she could no longer work there. So that's when Brianna got bumped up, and that's when everything went to her head.
So Rhodes said something.
No, I was just going to say, I looked online. Her background is in public administration and political science. That's what she has a degree in. And she's worked with a few nonprofit organizations as being like a community organizer, advocating for social justice and environmental law. And she worked also on Hillary Clinton's campaign. So I think that's where the connection is right there.
So she's a climber.
But can I say this?
Yeah.
When people...
So she really hasn't worked.
If you take a Caucasian person and you invite them into a couple of meetings in the black community, look at their resume a year or two later. They put there having urban experience. Do you see my point? So a lot of these folks, all of these things, they attend meetings, they take notes, and all of a sudden they're community activists.
Or experts.
Right.
Exactly.
Right. That's like me going and making a hamburger and then saying I'm a gourmet chef. It's just the two just don't equate. No, and this is all this would these things sound like is that these were things to pad the resume, right? So if you look at it and say you work with Hillary Clinton, you work with City Councilor Lodge, Michelle Wu, and now you're in administration. I don't think any of this qualified for the real work, because it's a whole different type of work with constituent services than just being in the room taking notes.
Yes.
Well, Larry, I've held signs for a lot of candidates. I work. So can I put that on my resume that I've worked in their administration?
Well, you can put down you're a campaign manager.
Yeah, if you're creative enough, you can. Yeah, if you're creative enough.
Yeah, it's like when people used to call themselves domestic engineers, and I didn't know what that meant. Like
sanitation engineers.
Yeah, right. Fancy name, right? When you put that in front of it, sounds like, oh my God, you went to college for that?
Yeah, exactly. Are you an engineer?
Right, exactly.
I'm a garbage man.
Right, exactly. So, Dicka, you heard more evidence that clearly this person probably isn't qualified or the right fit for that position.
Well, especially the fact that you're taking complaints. All right, you should definitely be ready, like, to understand that you're dealing with the public, and if you're not a person that's amiable, approachable.
You know how many times in my profession I wanted people complaining that I wanted to tell them where to go, but that's not my job. It's not what I signed up for.
Some CEOs, actually, when they're making the decision whether they're going to hire someone or not, they always check their resume to see if they've ever been a server. If they've been a person that have been a waiter or what have you, if you've been in that position, she's more likely to hire you because she knows that you can deal with people and their different personalities.
Right.
And so this person has never had to serve anyone and has always been like saying, hey, I'm advocating for people.
Right. What becomes annoying when you feel like you've never had to really actually work for a living, and now you're tasked with taking care of everybody's problems. Ditko, what do you say, sir?
Well, first off, when it comes to resumes, anybody can lie on a resume, yeah? So let's get that out the way. I can lie about certain things that I can put on my resume, and when I go to a job application, when I go to a job interview, the person will buy what I put down, no? Without having a complete background check on what I did, So that's number one, Number two, since this if the report is true in the Boston Globe, then it's time for that person to go. She has to go. And whether the man wants it or not, this is going to tarnish her for her so-called re-election if she's going to if she wants for re-election.
I don't see. Here's the sad part. I don't think it will. I don't think the accountability. We don't hold people accountable in the way that we should, elected officials, and that's why they take us for granted. I mean, I was surprised when Councilor Laura and Arroyo lost their bids for re-election, and I think had the illegal behavior allegations didn't come up, and even a lot of times that doesn't affect them. I think, in honestly, because of the areas that they work in, that they serve as well, I think that population, if they were, I'll put it to you like this, if they were running for re-election in Roxbury, Parts of Dorchester, Mattapan, they probably would have still be on the ballot for re-election. But because both of them are in Rosendale, Hyde Park, West Roxbury, these folks said, we don't want a clown show, and rightfully so. We don't want a clown show representing us, so we're going to find someone else, and it looks like they're going to have someone. I know Ben Weber is leading, Kennedy has my support, that they're going to finally have someone representing them, at least in Laura's situation, who is an adult, and it looks like the same thing with whoever replaces Arroyo. Time. So we got 2 minutes. I'm gonna give you each of you 30 seconds. I'll start with you, Dick, though.
Keep supporting Team Michael Services, the People's Academy.
Right. And stay tuned. Like I said, we're going to be talking about the elections at our 9 o'clock hour. And Team Michael, I've been in lengthy conversations with folks about the People's Academy this week. Just want you to know
great, because the number one focus is we're in $1 billion industry, robberies up in the city, street violence, and all we would like to do is to give these individuals, teach them a trade that they could take care of their family, community, the economy through the People's Academy.
Yeah.
Wow, that just rhymed.
Right.
Great show, and I will be listening.
All right, and the
Thank
robbery,
you, gentlemen, and have a good day.
You too. Robbery continues with the taxpayers are getting robbed.
That's exactly what I'm saying to myself. Have you been listening to the show lately?
This is beyond bizarre.
Yeah, it is.
How people, taxpayers, or allow themselves to continue to be taken advantage of in this way. It just boggles my mind why people don't see it as their money, which it is. They always say, like, if you had to write a check every week and send it to the government, people would be more outraged rather than them taking it.
Because then they'd really realize.
Yeah, right.
Oh, I didn't realize we were still on. I thought, oh, okay.
Yeah, 30 seconds.
All right. No, but I really feel like, if people had to write a check every week, then they would, like, really have to, like,
exactly.
they'd stand up.
Well, that's the reason why they collect taxes the way that
right.
they do.
They do, exactly.
Because people don't necessarily think about it.
Because it's already taken
They
before.
think about it. You get angry, but they already got it.
They already got
it. Yeah, you can anger all you want, it's not coming back.
Yeah. That's right.
Unless we vote to get it back.
Yeah.
All right, folks, we've got to run. We're going to take a break. We'll come back. We're going to be talking about the local politics. An election, folks may not even realize there's an election coming up in a couple of weeks here in the city of Boston. We'll be listening at the round table with MAMLEO. We'll be right back.
I wrote 300 songs in 1 year. Boogie will tell you I'm on it. I got unreleased songs for